A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. I hope that you had a wonderful Independence Day holiday. I took an extra day off, if you didn't notice, but I am glad to be back behind the microphone once again. And we're going to be talking here in just a moment with Tom King, head of the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. Now, I spoke with Tom last week. Could not share that interview with you because of technical difficulties, but we've got him back. And now we've had a few days to digest the post-Bruen gun control laws put in place by New York Democrats, as well as some time for Tom and the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association to figure out what their next steps will be in response to these laws, which I believe not only violate the letter of the Supreme Court's decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen, but violate the spirit of that law as well. So without any further ado, let's get right to this conversation with Tom King, head of the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, about what comes next in New York. Take a look and a listen. Tom, it's good to talk with you again. Thanks so much for coming on the program.
That's quite all right, Cam. I enjoy it a whole lot.
And there's not a lot to enjoy right now in New York. I mean, listen, we've got the Bruen decision, but we've also got the backlash to the Bruen decision coming down from Governor Hochul and the Democrats in charge of the New York legislature, passing more than a half dozen new gun control bills into law last week, including some new requirements, Tom, for concealed carry applicants and concealed carry holders that sure seem to fly in the face of what the Supreme Court said during the in its decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen.
Yeah, you would think that they were almost retaliating against the Supreme Court, trying to circumvent their rulings, But Kathy Hochul claims that they're going right up to the line that the Supreme Court drove. And we all know that's not true, but my problem is that she made a statement that the Supreme Court was reprehensible, among a few other things, for making the decision and enforcing the Second Amendment, and making it an equal amendment with the other 10. And, and no one really called her on that, As far as I'm concerned, what she's doing and what the Democrats are doing is reprehensible. They all took an oath of office to protect the Second Amendment, the Constitution of the United States. That's part of their oath of office, and I think they just violated that.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, and we can talk about some of the specifics of the legislation, everything from, going through social media accounts before, they can be approved for a concealed carry application. In essence, banning concealed carry from all private businesses unless business owners opt in. Justice Thomas talked about the general right to carry a firearm in public for self-defense. That's what we have with the right to keep and bear arms. And yet again, the response from New York is no. We're going to make sure that it's as hard as possible to get a license. We're going to make it as hard as possible to carry a firearm in self-defense, both of which completely goes against what the Supreme Court said and what you just talked about, the Second Amendment being a real right. So then the next question becomes, Tom, what is the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association prepared to do about this?
We're prepared to do almost anything. Our lawyers are looking at the whole situation right now, Cam, and there's a number of things that come into play. We have to handle this right so that you just can't go willy-nilly and put in a TRO, because you may mess some things up for future appeals and stuff like that. So they're looking at the proper way, in the way that we will guarantee our rights of appeal down the road. So we are going to do something, and it's going to be sooner than later, but we also only do things the correct way, okay? And we want to make sure that, if need be, this can also go all the way to the Supreme Court and we can be victorious. So, yes, we are going to do something. Are we going to challenge? We're going to challenge everything that's challengeable.
Okay. All right. And there's a lot there to be challengeable. I mean, listen, and I want gun owners to understand too, like some of the things that they're putting in place, 16 hours of training. I believe it's 2 hours of range time. Look, I think that's onerous. I don't know that the courts are necessarily going to consider that to be unconstitutional. We've got similar training regimes and requirements in other anti-gun jurisdictions like Illinois and Washington, D.C. But it really does seem to me like when you focus on what the overall intent of this package really is, it's not to ensure that legal gun owners can exercise their Second Amendment rights. Quite the opposite, right? I mean, this is designed to artificially depress the number of people applying for a license and to make it legally so dangerous that I think people will say, listen, it's not worth the risk of me exercising my right to carry. If you are so again, under the law as it is going to go into effect on September the 1st, virtually every private business is off limits to concealed carry unless they post a sign that says gun owners are welcome here or something like that. If you inadvertently or accidentally bring your lawfully owned, legally carried firearm into one of those establishments, it's a felony, Tom. It's a felony offense, punishable by years in prison, permanent loss of your right to keep and bear arms. And again, this applies to the folks who've jumped through all of the hoops and hurdles, who've managed to navigate the maze of red tape set in place by New York Democrats. If you so much as accidentally set foot on a private property line, that's a felony offense. That alone, I think, has to fall. I mean, again, when we're talking about respecting a right here, this is not how you do it.
No, it isn't. And that's undoubtedly one of the aspects of the law that we're going to be challenging him. I don't, because it's you, I'll talk about it, but I don't like to talk about a lot of these beforehand and give our plans up. Okay.
Well, keep in mind, it's not just me listening here, Tom. Just okay.
I'll stretch a little bit for you. Okay. But the thing that bothers me about this whole scenario is, I don't know if you saw, if you read the New York Post, okay, but had the front page of the New York Post is there were 50 people shot in New York City yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, come on, guys, and I guarantee you, none of those were legal or lawful gun owners. And it's the case, but the New York Post was the only one who covered it. Yet the shooting in Highland Park was covered all over the other papers. And not taking anything away from that, but what's the difference if a life is a life? And I just and it's obvious that you can see that there is an agenda to take our guns away.
Absolutely. And that agenda, I think, is coming through loud and clear. And unfortunately, listen, I wish New York Democrats had gotten the message, but clearly they have not. And I'm glad to hear that the attorneys are looking on the next steps here. Tom, listen, what's your advice to New York gun owners in the meantime, who are looking at this effective date of September the 1st, hoping that they, again, can start to exercise their Second Amendment rights, but seeing all of these roadblocks and barriers that the state is erecting in their way?
Well, to borrow a statement from my youth that was very popular, and that's keep the faith, okay? Because things are going to change, okay? We're not going to let this go, okay? And don't give up, but the thing you have to remember is who did this to you? Governor Hochul and the Democratic Assembly and the Democratic Senate. How can they get even with those groups and the governor? Well, there's an easy way, and you just all have to remember that when it comes to November, because the voting box is how you solve this problem. Get rid of these people, and your problems go away.
Yep, absolutely. Vote them out. Tom King, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the program today, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward to catching up again very, very soon. I do appreciate Tom joining me on the program, and he'll be back with us again very soon, I promise. We are going to be talking with a lot of state-level organizations, with a lot of 2A attorneys, because right now that is where the action's happening. At the state legislature level, at the in the courthouses around the country. Not just at the state level, though, at local levels as well. You know, you've got gun control groups who are really pushing and they've been doing this for years to get rid of firearms preemption laws, allowing localities to set their own gun laws that are more restrictive than state law. They've seen some success in states like Colorado, and we're already seeing in Boulder, for example. The city council there set to introduce today a new slate of gun control measures, again, flagrantly ignoring what the Supreme Court has said in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. And each and every one of those local ordinances is going to take a legal response if they become law. So, again, we've got a lot of stuff going on at the court level. It's not like Bruin calmed things down. I mean, Bruin stirred things up. And we are in a critically important period when it comes to protecting and securing our right to keep and bear arms. Now, let's turn our attention to today's armed citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. You know, this is the stuff that Democrats don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about the laws that are already in the books. They don't want to talk about how the criminal justice system works. They want to talk about putting more laws in place, right? It's the next round that's going to make a difference. Meanwhile, we keep seeing stories like this. Detroit shooting suspects releases, plural, prompt police cries of judicial leniency. Yeah, and it's hard to argue otherwise in this case. Teddy Valentino Davis appeared before Wayne County Circuit Judge Michael Hathaway back on May 23rd for a bond violation hearing. He was 20 years old. He had allegedly breached his bond and tether conditions 5 times while awaiting trial on a concealed weapons charge. The judge in this case said, all right, you know what? We're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. Take off his ankle monitoring device, and we'll just release him on his own recognizance. That way he doesn't have to keep showing up in court. Yeah, seriously. He violates the terms of his pretrial release on multiple occasions, and the judge says, well, let's make sure that we don't know about this happening anymore, because this causes all kinds of problems for us. He was arrested back on January 18th. These are some of his prior infractions. Well, again, he was out on bond. Arrested back on January 18th by Detroit police officials who say that he was carrying a gun that matched 20 shell casings recovered from a drive-by shooting 9 days earlier. The GPS unit on Davis's ankle device tracked him to the crime scene, as well as other shootings. He was charged with a drive-by shooting on January 22nd, given a personal bond and tether. Back in April, police say he again violated his tether agreement when investigators tracked his GPS to a vacant Northwest home in Detroit, where he and another man were allegedly holed up in the house with multiple firearms. He was arrested then and scheduled for the May bond violation hearing before Hathaway. So by the time he showed up before a judge, he was already a suspect in a drive-by shooting. 3 months after the judge removed his tether and continued his $50,000 personal bond, Detroit police officers who were monitoring Davis's social media activity said that he once again violated bond on June 22nd by allegedly live streaming an Instagram video in which he brandished a gun and threatened to harm others. He was arrested the following day in a hotel, allegedly with a pistol in his waistband. Right now, he's in the Wayne County Jail. Wayne Circuit Judge Miriam Bazzi set bond at $1 million cash during an emergency hearing last Friday on the initial concealed weapon charge. In the shooting case, a bond violation hearing is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow in the original judge's courtroom. So, yeah, the original judge still a part of this case. The Detroit News reports that police officials furious over the judge's decision to remove Davis's tether and continue the personal bond, which they say is an example of increased judicial leniency towards allegedly violent offenders. Police Chief James White said in a statement, quote, regrettably low bonds have become a norm in our courts. This is an affront to the city's community as well as members of this department that put their lives on the line every day. Well, nothing that another gun control law can't fix, right? Yeah. And again, this isn't something that Democrats want to talk about. Let's ban guns. Let's create more criminals out of law-abiding citizens. Let's ban AR-15s. Let's turn tens of millions of Americans into criminals overnight. Now, not only would that be flagrantly unconstitutional, but as we've seen, the criminal justice system isn't dealing well with violent criminals right now. The idea that slapping another possessory gun offense or 6 or 12 on the books, as they've done in New York, as they've done in California, as they've done in New Jersey recently, the idea that that's going to fix things or make anything better is absolutely absurd. Honestly, this gun-centric approach, we talk about it at Bearing Arms today. I've got a story, our VIP gold story, our VIP story today, all about how one decision in the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, one very gun-centric decision for the Baltimore Police Department to test every firearm that was recovered by the Baltimore police. On paper, right? If you're a gun control advocate, it sounds great. Oh my gosh, we're getting tough on guns. In reality, what this meant was long delays for processing evidence from murder scenes, sexual assaults, carjackings. And oh yeah, by the way, just 6% of the gun possession cases in Baltimore actually resulted in charges. And according to the Baltimore police, over half of those cases ended up without a conviction. This is what happens when you focus on the gun or the law-abiding gun owner as opposed to the violent criminal. Not only do you infringe on people's rights, which admittedly is not much of a concern for many on the left, but you don't address the actual problem, and violent crime only gets worse, which of course for Democrats is simply another reason to call for another round of ineffective and unconstitutional gun control laws. All right, today's armed citizen story from the Lone Star State of Texas, where a pair of armed robbers were shot at after trying to rob a fireworks stand. Yeah, Travis County Sheriff's Office responded to a 911 call just before midnight Monday night. It said he was robbed and shot at. Deputies responded to the fireworks stand. Employees told deputies that they were robbed at gunpoint by two subjects, both men wearing all black, wearing masks, one of them wearing a beanie as well. One of the employees fired his lawfully carried firearm at the robbers and hit one of them, according to the sheriff's office. Deputies searched the area, and less than half a mile from the scene, they found a Hispanic male with multiple non-life-threatening gunshot wounds hiding behind a home and a fence. He was transported to a hospital, now in custody. The second suspect, at last report, has not been apprehended. But again, what could have been much worse was not, thanks to the presence of an armed citizen there, able to protect and defend himself and his colleagues. Now, today's good deed of the day, in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. A 16-year-old in Pascagoula, Mississippi, who was in the right place at the right time and willing to do what he had to do to save some lives. Corian Evans was hanging out, I think it was 4th of July evening, at a boat launch near Moss Point, Mississippi. Boat launch into the Pascagoula River. A lot of folks there for the 4th of July. There was a car full of teenage girls, 3 of them, who ended up driving straight off of the boat launch into the water. And Corian Evans, you see him there on the screen, jumped in to help save him. Not only that, he actually helped save a police officer who jumped in as well. He said, I was behind him trying to keep them above water, swimming them at the same time. He helped bring the 3 girls to shore along with Moss Point police officer Gary Mercer, who responded to the scene and swam out to help. Corian Evans says, I turned around and see the police officer, and he's drowning. He's going underwater, drowning, saying, help. So I went over there. I grabbed the police officer, and I'm like swimming him back. The officer and the 3 girls all taken to the hospital for treatment. They are now recovering. Chief Brandon Ashley with the Moss Point Police Department says the police department and I commend Mr. Evans' bravery and selflessness that he displayed in risking his own safety to help people in danger, saying if Mr. Evans had not assisted, it could have possibly turned out tragically instead of all of the occupants rescued safely. One of the girls went on Facebook and told Evans that he saved her life, quote, right before my last breath. Again, everybody's all right. Officer Mercer expected to be back on duty later this week, but in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. 16-year-old Corian Evans there of Moss Point, Mississippi. We thank you for your very, very good deed. Now, that is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program as always. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition right here, chock full of the latest Second Amendment news and information that you need to know about. But don't forget, you can always visit bearingarms.com throughout the day. We are constantly updating the website with the latest news about your right to keep and bear arms. And we would definitely encourage you to visit. Also encourage you to become a VIP member. Not only will you get exclusive content and analysis, things you won't find anywhere else, as our way of saying thanks for showing your support, but you will get the warm, fuzzy feeling of knowing that you are supporting independent pro-Second Amendment journalism. And your support does matter, and it does make a difference. So again, we thank you for it. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, be well, be safe, be free.